We are a partner and a friend, but we will not dictate to the Afghan people how to live or how to govern their own complex society. We are not nation building again. We are killing terrorists.
All right, quick foreign market reaction to all of this. U.S. market reaction largely positive here. I don't want to, say that this is exclusively the reason for the markets advancing. Our own markets had picked up prior on the day, but they were tepid gains, and these gains again are hardly dramatic gains, but gains nevertheless. This is also about a president not only reasserting his presence in Afghanistan and what is a clear pivot, but he says a justifiable one. But it could go a long way toward getting him back on offense when it comes to an agenda that, of course, has been stymied, certainly after one of the worst weeks of his presidency last week. The Circa News war correspondent, Sara Carter. We've got my buddy Kennedy back with us, and former DNC official Pablo Manriquez. Kennedy, to you on this. I know you're concerned about, doubling down or a few thousand more soldiers down in a region that we've spent a good deal of time, effort, and money. The president, though, saying there's too much at risk if we were to pull out now.
No, I understand that, and that is, and all he has to do is exactly what he did, point to what happened in Iraq in 2011. I think, he has to be very careful, because a move like this could make it look like a move that Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton would make, and I think he did a pretty good job of differentiating this administration from their administrations, and he did that by taking responsibility for the fact that he was against any kind of surge like this, and he was for getting troops out of Afghanistan. And, when he gave that perspective and said, when you sit behind the desk in the Oval Office, your perspective changes.
And that impressed me in a way, because it was the first time we've heard from this president acknowledging, yeah, this is a pivot. I'm paraphrasing here, but this is a reversal of my position. But the one thing I've learned in this job is that you get a whole new sense of perspective and importance here, and listening to his generals say just that, right?
Yeah, this is certainly something that I've discussed with the president in the past. I know he's wrestled with this issue. And so for him to come out and admit that, I think is a really important step. But I think something, Neil, that we have to look at, too, is like, what are they going to be using? Are these 4,000 troops fighting a conventional war against an unconventional enemy? And this is something that he has to understand. I mean, this is a different kind of war, and this is something that I've seen since 2007. And it's going to be very difficult. It's not something that is going to be won overnight. And I think he left that open for that reason.
He did make a sort of a tangential reference, Pablo, to obviously the developments in this country over the last week and the differences back and forth, paraphrasing it, that we're all Americans, we've got to do the right thing. And I'm wondering now whether there is a sense that not only did he help maybe right himself on an important issue of gravitas here, but maybe on his agenda, or is it too soon to say that?
Well, I see two things going on here, two separate conversations that are kind of unfolding. The first is the humility in this speech that we haven't necessarily seen in other speeches. He was able to pivot away from his instincts towards what it seems like maybe Jim Mattis and some of these other Marine generals who he's surrounded himself with are telling him. And I think that's really important. I think that does increase Americans' confidence in his ability to make a decision of this type of gravity when it comes to military affairs. And the other conversation I'm seeing unfold on Twitter right now is amongst Democrats. A couple of early, bellwethers, you would say, about what the Democrat position on this is going to be tomorrow would be in Congressman Ruben Gallego from Arizona and Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, both of them obviously service people, and Ruben in particular, a man who was in a Marine combat unit in Iraq where he saw his best friend killed. So far, Ruben has weighed in. He tweeted a moment ago saying that he sees the president's speech as requesting a blank check, both in terms of blood and treasure in Afghanistan. So I think that it's a moment when the disorder within the Democratic Party is such that it allows for somebody like Congressman Gallego to rise in the ranks as a party leader. I hope he does.
I don't understand they see the president is issuing a blank check on this. I don't see that.
Right, because, well, I think that Congressman Gallego is seeking a strategy. I think that Democrats and a lot of people generally are going to be looking for a strategy, and the president is saying, I don't want to telegraph my past.
Under Barack Obama here, right? right?
Right, and I'm not here tonight to defend Barack Obama, just to speak directly about what the speech is. And I think it's interesting that the president is saying he's not going to telegraph his past. I think that's interesting. It lets the pieces fall into piece.
I'm sorry, Pablo, I rushed for time here, so I apologize. But I do want to say the president did refer to the events, in North Carolina, and this idea that after Charlottesville, this came into his thinking. I want you to react to this, Kennedy.
A wound inflicted upon a single member of our community is a wound inflicted upon us all. When one part of America hurts, we all hurt. And when one citizen suffers an injustice, we all suffer together. When we open our hearts to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice, no place for bigotry, and no tolerance for hate.
You know, Kennedy, it wasn't coincidental that he mentioned those developments and that perspective in this speech.
I think he needs a little bit more time to do some reputational damage about Charlottesville. He actually sounded like he had a better command of facts on Afghanistan. And I think linking the two together is a bit of a stretch right now. I think he had the right tone in his speech. And
he used this to make that comment.
I still think that's a bit of a logical leap.
Okay.
And I still have some trepidation based on the shift that he made against himself last week. If he can keep this tone going in Phoenix, if he can stay on message and deliver something in terms of economic optimism, I think he could have certainly a better week than he did last week.
Well, it can't get much worse than last week.
But he is listening to his generals, which is a shift from what Obama did.
It's a shift, period, right, Sarah?
It's a shift. It certainly is a shift from what we heard from Barack Obama, President Obama, when he was in charge, when this was his war. I think there were two really important points, and one is putting the onus on Pakistan. And I can tell you right now, because I spend a lot of time dealing with the Pakistani government, that they are going to take a step back now, and they are probably wondering, what is the president going to do at this point? And I think he did a lot for our troops tonight by saying he's going to loosen those rules of engagement.